You're all set.
Okay, call the meeting to order. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order superseding certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Laws, Chapter 38, Section 18 of the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Southborough Conservation Commission will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and or parties with a right and or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on Southborough on the Town of Southborough's website at https://www.southboroughtown.com, all one word. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to listen to the meeting may do so in the following manner: https://www.southboroughtown.com/remote meetings. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time by technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we'll post on Southborough's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. Okay, first up, we've got approval of minutes of 12/3/2020. Any edits, modifications, corrections? All right, hearing none, do I hear a motion to accept the minutes as written of 12/3/2020?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor by roll call vote?
Watson? You're on mute.
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Pete?
Yes.
Guyer?
Yes.
Gregory? He's still gone, sorry. Wittes?
Yes.
Passato?
Yes. Next are the minutes of the 12/10/2020 meeting.
I have a major revision on page 2, line 2. A period is missing between disturbance and this.
Okay.
Any discussion on that?
I just have one thing. I just want to call attention to one part of the.
No, we don't get to discuss the period, Carl. That just happens.
No. It's just as a it's just more a reminder for later. I don't want to start a discussion here about this, but on page 3, line 33, it says Ms. Watson asked if the applicant intends on working on all the lots at one time. Mr. Bemis stated they intended on focusing their work on lot 1. They will be maintaining egress up to lot 2 and leaving lot 3 alone at the time. I just want everybody to remember that.
Is that an error in the minutes of the meeting, Carl?
No, it's not an error. No, it's just, I'm just.
Oh, well, we can bring that up when we get to the hearing point.
Yeah, okay, all right.
This is for any corrections or errors in the minutes.
Oh, I know, I understand. Yeah, okay, thank you.
Somewhere in this conversation, if they knew.
Jeff, we can hardly hear you.
Yeah.
No better. You sound like you're at the bottom of a pool.
Yeah.
Is that better?
Yes, far better.
Okay. Yeah, too many options in these things. Okay. I did remember asking at some point in this meeting if they knew when they first broke ground, like as in when the violation would have started if we'd known about it. And they said that they didn't know, which struck me as funny, and that's why I remembered it. And I didn't find that in the minutes, but I also don't remember exactly when in the conversation it occurred. But do you guys remember? I'm pretty sure.
I think that was at the 1/7 meeting.
Okay.
I think we discussed that a little bit more when we started talking about the violations a little bit more.
I thought it was, well, I'm not sure. It was in one of the meetings, but I didn't see it in any of the minutes. Maybe if we don't know, then we can leave it out.
I can definitely, if that's something you guys want to include, we can look through the video, and if it is in there, we can put it in.
it was part of the conversation about how many days of violation it would be. And remember, it led into, we start the violations when it is observed, which is, great, but
Yes.
it's part of that conversation.
Okay.
All right, so that would have been, I think, the meeting on the 10th.
Yeah.
So why don't we hold that until we clear that up then?
Okay.
Okay, moving on to the minutes of 1/7/2021. Are there any omissions, edits, corrections? Okay, looks like there's none. So I hear a motion to accept the minutes of 1/7/2021
So
as
moved.
written. Is there a
Second,
second?
second,
Watson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Pete,
Yes.
Guyer,
yes,
Wittes,
Yes.
Quasimodo.
Yes. Okay. Okay, so first up is 7 p.m. stormwater management permit for Foley Drive, map 55, lot 98. In accordance with the provision of the South Row Stormwater Bylaw and Erosion Control Bylaws, South Row Zoning Code, Chapter 174, Section 13.5, the South Row Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Thursday, January 28th, 2021 at 7 p.m. via virtual Zoom meeting on the petition of Bartolini Builders for approval of a stormwater management permit for the construction of a single-family home at 4 Foley Drive, map 55, lot 98.
Good evening. Peter Bemis here on behalf of Bartolini Builders for 4 Foley Drive. And this is properties located on the north side of Foley, near the terminus of Foley itself. It's a half-acre lot, fairly flat. There's a bit of a rise towards the back of the lot where a berm was actually constructed back when the subdivision was originally done along the CSX rail line. The site plan indicates the proposed dwelling being kind of centrally located towards the front of the lot. We've got a stormwater management system that we've included to take 100% of the roof runoff and infiltrate that back to the ground. We have a soil absorption system in the rear part of the lot, clearing most of this lot for making the lot available for the proposed dwelling. And there's a erosion control map that will go in as part of the stormwater management controls. Has SWEP outlines listed on the plan. We have an O&M plan that we included that's a standalone with an inspection form. Infiltration details are located on the site plan, erosion controls on the site plan. There's a filter strip for the driveway. Pretty straightforward application with supporting calculations for the systems that we proposed. The only thing we didn't include in this packet that we typically would include was a stormwater analysis under the DEP stormwater management guidelines, because single-family homes like this just don't meet that form and that standard. So we provided you with a calc. We didn't do that form, so there's no PE seal or the 10 interest being addressed. Be happy to answer any specific questions you have regarding the proposal.
Okay, thank you. Any question from the commission members?
let's see, just a quick question. Septic approval, is that done?
Yes, Board of Health has approved this lot.
DEP number?
There's no wetlands on this lot, so we
Oh,
don't
okay,
have
sorry.
a notice
All
of
right,
intent filing.
All right.
We probably would just post an SMP sign. That's what we've
Yep.
been typically doing with the street number on it, so that if someone had a complaint, they would be able to lodge it with your commission and they would know the address because we've identified it.
Sorry, Peter, we lost track there, sorry.
Yeah, this is an application of the town bylaw, the stormwater management bylaw.
Yep.
Right.
Not Wetlands Protection Act.
Okay.
Okay. Any other comments from anybody else?
Peter, can I ask just one question? On the plan, you have the construction period pollution prevention and erosion and sedimentation control section of notes. And you have lines for name of person responsible for compliance and then construction manager. Will you fill that in later and submit it to Melissa, or is that just a stamped one you threw on there? And
Yeah, we're really just trying to raise our hand and tell everybody what they're supposed to do. I mean, in this case, the permit would be issued to the contractor. So essentially they would know that they are the party, and that's why we list it this way. There are separate standalone documents that are in the packet. I would anticipate that we would get a contractor affidavit filed with Melissa before work would start. With a project like this, there would be a pre-construction meeting because they're going to inspect the erosion control anyways. And the parties would be identified and everyone would understand their role.
Okay.
So we've been trying to do it this way though, so that you can't say you didn't know, it's on the plan. That's why it kind of makes its way to the plan, just in case you don't have your paperwork.
thank you.
Okay. Any other comments from any other members? Okay, it looks pretty straightforward. Unless anybody else has any comments or questions. Melissa, do you have everything you need for the application?
I do. Maybe just ask for public comment. I don't have anything on my end that's outstanding.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Oh, sorry. For just public comment would be the only thing we would need.
Did you say you have everything you need for the application?
Yes, I have everything
Okay.
for the application, just for the public hearing, just asking for public comment, and making sure there's nothing.
Okay, sure. Yeah, so I'll open up for any public comment at this point.
If
Any
anyone,
hands raised?
if anyone would like to, please use the raise hand feature, and I'm not seeing anything as of right now.
Okay. So if there's nobody that have their hand raised, then I think, do I hear a motion to close this hearing?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor by roll call vote?
Watson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Pete,
Aye.
Geyer,
Yes,
I'll skip Russ, Wittes,
Yes.
Pasamato,
Yes.
only because he just joined in. Okay. We can come back to, I have the decision drafted. We can do that at the end, Mark, if you'd like.
I was going to ask you if you had that drafted yet. You do? Okay.
Yeah, yep. So we can come back to that at the end when we do the other issuances.
Okay. Yeah, we'll move on since it is 7:13 and we have a scheduled 7:10.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, 7:10, 50 Deerfoot Road, RDA, request for determination of applicability for a replacement of a failed septic. So in accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Southborough Wetlands Bylaw, the Southborough Conservation Commission will conduct a public hearing on Thursday, January 28, 2021 at 7:10 p.m. by a virtual Zoom meeting. The commission will consider a request for determination for a project at 50 Deerfoot Road, map 43, lot 55 for the applicant James Ballard. The project description is replacement of a failed septic system within the buffer zone. Okay, who do we have here?
Joe Marco down here, joined by Jim Ballard, the homeowner. We prepared the plan that was submitted to the commission. Jim owns number 50 Deerfoot Road, home built circa 1970, 71, septic system about the same time. He's in the process of selling his home. The system was found to be in failure during the Title V inspection. Jim contacted us about developing a game plan to come up with a replacement septic system. The plan that you have on the screen now is our design. The wetlands was delineated by Scott Heim, Northeast Ecological. We did the boundary line, topographical survey, taking advantage of the boundary line from 1970. The approach in the beginning was to try and in all honesty, try to avoid this filing, or at least reduce the complexity. The hope was that we would test in the front yard, reroute the plumbing from the rear yard where the existing septic tank is to the front. The two test holes in the front, the percolation rates are up over 90 minutes an inch, so therefore not acceptable for septic system placement by local or state code. We refocused our energies in the rear of the home and came up with a location off to the north of the existing deck and home that you see on that plan. We are going to raise the existing tank, replace it with a new tank, a pump chamber, and push this or lift the effluent up to the location, the leach bed that you see on that plan. We have an erosion control barrier on the downhill side, a little bit of a workspace between the erosion control, enough to place a poly barrier to control the bleed out from the system, and store some materials. All of the work that we're proposing is either in a landscape bed or in lawn area. Be happy to take any questions that you might have.
Where is the existing system today?
Off the screen to the top right, down in that back area, the most extreme easterly portion of the site. And our initial review indicated that that leach field, although appropriate for 1970, was probably too close to the wetlands limit for 2021. So we ignore that area and move closer to the home. As I said a moment ago, start in the front and now we're at the rear.
All right, so the leach field was far away from the house previously. Now you're tucking this up pretty close to the house?
Exactly.
Got it. And the closest point is what, 72 feet, I see?
From the erosion control, correct.
Erosion control. And how far is it to the actual leach field?
Excuse me.
Further, obviously.
Measure to the corner of the bed, 82 feet.
82 feet, okay. And has the Board of Health approved the system?
Yes, we have the Board of Health approval in hand.
Okay. And are you looking for a delineation of the wetlands as flagged?
In discussing it with Melissa, this seemed, and I will obviously go along with whatever is common practice with this commission, but it seemed like this was one of those locations that you might entertain issuing some kind of determination because of the proximity, the distance from the existing wetlands, the fact that we're in previously disturbed areas might be a way to simplify the filing and move this forward. I think everyone wants to see the existing failed system replaced. It'd be a better situation for all if that system were no longer in use.
And when do you expect to do the work?
Almost immediately. I think they have a closing set up very shortly and the contractor is already lined up. Curtis Septic is ready to begin pending the outcome of tonight's hearing.
Well, the weather this weekend, you'll be pulling cookies out of the ground, I think.
Not ideal. I agree with that. But
okay.
So
I don't have any other questions. Any other board members have questions for this? I can't see everybody. Matt, do you have any comments? From Lucas Environmental?
Yeah, I presume Melissa was able to distribute my comment memo to everyone.
You know, I didn't see it, so I wasn't sure you reviewed this, honestly.
Yeah, we just got it yesterday, so I hope the email went out yesterday. If not, it should be on Dropbox.
Okay, well, anyways, I'll go through my comments. So I guess the big one is I have a fairly significant disagreement with the wetland boundary that's shown on the plan. Based on a few different pieces of evidence out there, I feel that where wetland flags 4 through 7 kind of cut across the property there, I feel the boundary is likely following the 280 contour. which gets the work within about, I think about 40 feet or less of the wetland boundary. And the reason why I feel the wetland boundary belongs, so this is all lawn. So whenever you have lawn, it's a disturbed situation, which makes it a little bit more complicated to a certain degree to delineate. But basically means you ignore the vegetation because essentially there is none, and you look primarily at the soils. And unfortunately, a lot of the ground was frozen when I was out there earlier this week inspecting. But I was able to get the auger in up gradient of wetland flag number 5. The flag wasn't actually there, but I kind of figure out where it was. And I found hydric soils quite a ways up there until the ground got frozen, fairly close to the stone wall that's depicted on the plan there, the little black and white ovals. And then if you go to the neighboring property to the bottom of this page, I don't know if that's south or not, but the neighboring property, you can see the wetland boundary comes up, and on the neighboring property, it hasn't been mowed. The backyard hasn't been mowed to the same extent as on this property. And you find all wetland vegetation, like really dominant all wetland vegetation, up to about that 280 or maybe even a little bit higher contour on that property. And then sort of the third piece of evidence was actually on the plan itself. They found that the evidence of high water, high groundwater on the property is at about elevation 280. So when you put all those factors together, to me, the wetland boundary belongs somewhere up near 280. It might be 279. You know, it would take much more extensive looking at soils to nail it down entirely. That being said, obviously there's not a lot of options as to where this system needs to go. Obviously the home needs a septic system. But I think, Melissa, I don't know if you can comment on, I think you were in contact with the Board of Health, that the fact that if the wetland is in fact in that area, which I believe it is, that may add some complexity to the permitting of it. And also just a question of whether this can be permitted through the RDA process or if a notice of intent is more appropriate. So that was really the main thing. A couple other really small things in the review, but that was the big one that probably needs to be discussed first and foremost.
And how far do you think, you said it was about 40 feet. Was I just eyeballing it, Matt?
No, I was measuring off so if we use the 280 as the wetland boundary, I scaled it off. Yeah, I think it might have been 35 feet to the limit of the erosion controls.
And then it's how far to the limit of the actually septic system?
I think Joe might have an answer for that. He's probably got the scale right in front of him.
Okay.
At the closest point, we would be 50 feet from the leach bed to the 280 contour. If I may offer something regarding this topic, this is a real concern for Jim Ballard. So I met Scott Heim this afternoon at 1 o'clock at the site. He did 2 probes in the lawn, 25 feet off of flag number 5 and 25 feet off of flag number 6. He did not find the hydric soils that Matt mentioned a moment ago. He feels that the soil testing that he did, and obviously it is a small sample, but the soil testing taken today corroborates his report from his original delineation.
So we've got a disagreement.
Right.
Melissa, Matt mentioned you talked to the Board of Health.
Yeah, I think it's mostly just what Matt kind of went over, you know, I just was double checking because I know Carl always asks if it was approved by the Board of Health. So that's kind of where my thought process was in
Okay.
talking to them. And then once I got Matt's letter, you know, just kind of seeing if that would change their approval and what that process would be. And if it was closer than 50 feet, then they would just need a waiver from DEP to put the septic in because it's tributary to the Sudbury.
Hang on, I'm having a technical issue here. Okay. So I was going to say something.
Well, I was just, we heard 25 feet in this test, did not see hydric soils. And just, Matt, can you remind us how far was yours? Is it possible to sort of get a sense of where on this map these two measurements were taken that are conflicting? Are the holes right next to each other or in slightly different spots?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't there when Scott was out there. I was able to get my auger in the ground, upgrading a 5, and I did probably 3 or 4 kind of going up the hillside. You know, probably within 5 or 10 feet of the stone wall.
Yeah, and we had 3 inches of snow today, so we would not have seen Matt's probe locations.
But I guess I guess I would just comment that it doesn't sound like the applicant is requesting the boundary to be approved. If there's really no other place for this system to go, I don't know if the wetland boundary necessarily has to be agreed upon unless the commission is averse to issuing a permit through the determination process, you know, depending on how close the work is to the wetland boundary. And that's for the commission, obviously, to determine.
I asked a question earlier whether or not we were looking for confirmation of the wetland boundary. And I believe the answer was that the applicant was not. Is that correct?
We were looking to resolve the issue. If I have filled out the form incorrectly, then I apologize. The idea was to agree on the scope, agree on the wetlands edge, and agree that this was permissible as an RDA.
Well, so if we're going to talk about agreeing on the wetlands edge, and we have a disagreement, then, you know, that will take resolution, which will probably require that, you know, our wetlands consulting, Luskins Environmental, specifically Matt, go out on site with your wetland specialist and have them, you know, arm wrestle to a solution, if you will. If you're not looking to have the, you know, boring wetland edge, you know, certified, if you would, then, you know, it can be what it can be. And then it sounds like what we would have to do is get Board of Health involved to make a determination whether or not the system can go where it is if it's closer than 50 feet to the, you know, possible wetland edge. And if it's right on the 50-foot line, I'm a little uncomfortable with that because it's kind of rough measurements looking at a drawing on the screen here that, you know, it could be 48 or it could be 47 or it could be 55. I don't know. But, you know, it has to be 50 feet away unless, you know, a waiver is sought after. And the Conservation Commission doesn't provide that waiver.
Mm-hmm.
The other commission members have thoughts.
Mark, got a question? Can we approve the RDA contingent on the Board of Health approval? Did they get reviewed so that they can move forward? If they get Board of Health approval, then they can go?
Well, what we typically do, Carl, right, is if we issue a negative determination of applicability, we typically tie some conditions to that to make sure that, you know, the wetlands that are out there, wherever they are protected to the greatest extent possible, right? So we'd identify limit of work, you know, things of that nature, that the wetlands boundary has not been, certified. Therefore, it's not a point of record of where the flags are now, and that sort of thing. If the commission thinks that we can come up with, that list of conditions with a negative determination, then I would say the answer to your question would be yes.
Okay. Thank you.
I measured just on the plan here in my scale from the 280 contour, which I think is worst case scenario for where the wetland boundary is, to 50 feet from that. Looks like you get about a foot into that leach bed. And I think the tanks, Joe, does it have to be just the leach field, or do the tanks have to be 50 feet as well?
That's
Yeah, I believe
that's above my pay grade. Russ Gregory, do you know that answer?
I'm working on my mute. So the first question, Matt, is that into the sand or is that actually into the leach lines? So there's a 5-foot over dig on that generally is all over the place. Not really considered the system.
Well, and I was thinking if need be, probably that system can be pushed away a little bit, right? A few feet if need be. The tanks are within, appears about 44, 45 feet. So that'll be harder though, because those can't move closer to the house, it doesn't appear.
tanks need to be 25 feet. Just pulled out my code while we were kicking this around, 25 foot to the wetlands for the tanks. And there is some flexibility with that system location. So that could move that couple of feet we need to ensure 50 feet.
When you did your soil testing, did you have to get a waiver for groundwater?
I'm not sure what you mean.
For separation from groundwater? Are you 3 feet, 4 feet?
Not with the technology that we're using. The technology that we're using allows for 2-foot separation.
Okay. So your groundwater is 2 feet below your bottom of your bed?
Correct.
Thank you.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, groundwater was found to be at elevation 280, which was part of the reasoning why I felt the 280 contour was accurate. Obviously, there's not water bleeding out of that slope, but if groundwater that close is at 280, leads me to believe that those soils that I saw and the other factors based on vegetation on the adjoining property kind of put it all together. That's where the wetland boundary belongs.
Mark. Mr. Marticon, do you think you could squeeze 5 feet out of the system, moving it towards the northwest?
Yes, I believe we could.
Yeah, I mean, that would give me some comfort from, what Matt has described as the worst case scenario with the line following the 280 contour. That would put us comfortably 50 feet away from the wetland. I feel like we could condition this appropriately to be able to, from my perspective, issue a negative determination.
Agree with Ben on that, if you could push it that far. Although I would condition that we not approve the wetland line in our decision.
Yeah.
I mean, would we or could we ask that subsequently the wetland line be confirmed, not necessarily as part of this or as part of the condition, so that future homeowner would be using the correct wetland line?
I would just
Well,
note we would have to come back and do that if they chose to do a project.
right.
Wetland line then.
Yeah, and honestly, given the winter conditions that we're up against now, we may have lost the opportunity to do that for a couple of months here. to really, drive conclusion.
Yeah,
I
it's
would agree,
nothing.
I would agree with that, Mark. That land's going to be concrete in the next couple days and be really hard to, even if Scott and I went out there, to really get and look at that soil properly without a machine.
Yeah, typically, to get to this time of year with snow cover and frozen ground, and we become handcuffed, right, to be able to accurately do that. And it's not fair to the homeowner or future homeowners to not accurately depict it if that's what we're going to go after, right? So, I mean, I'm comfortable with what I heard. If the system can be moved away, 5 feet, that I think we can probably condition this appropriately. If anybody disagrees, please speak up.
I'd like to say something at some point as the homeowner, but I know you folks need to go over the technical issues first, and I respect that and appreciate your doing so.
Well, Mr.
So,
Ballard,
but
I
at some
think
point.
I think we might have bottomed out on that, so go right ahead.
Okay,
I have the
Jim
floor.
Ballard. Thanks. I'm Jim Ballard. I appreciate the opportunity to be here and talk to you. I put the home on the market. It's a hot market in early September, and I accepted an offer on it by mid-September. I don't have the date in front of me right now. My wife and I made an offer on a new home that was accepted on October 1st. There were various reasons, largely related to the pandemic, I believe, why things moved slowly through soil sample testing and such. But it's taken an awfully long time to get to this point. I'm glad to be at this point. We've had to move the closing date on these sales. The purchase of my new home is conditional on the sale of this house. And we've moved both those closings, I think, 4 times now. Amazingly, both my buyer and the person I am buying from have adapted to that, to those 4 adjustments. But I fear I'm trying their patience. The current closing on the sale of Deerfoot is in fact tomorrow. So everyone's waiting with bated breath here. Not only is it causing stress for me and the 2 other folks I'm dealing with as a seller and a buyer, it's adding some financial strain because the people I'm buying from are being reasonable, but I can't expect them to keep paying their mortgage while I delay the purchase of their home. So we've also taken on paying their mortgage. We've made one payment already, and another one will be due in February. And we're happy to do that, but it all adds up. So clearly, the homeowner is always interested in things moving quickly, and I know you hear that a lot. But if there were a sanctioned way that I could throw myself on the mercy of the commission, you can bet that I would do that. And I just want you to let you know that it's important not only to me, but my wife, the family that is buying my home, that loves the area, as my late wife and I have loved it for the 9 years. Well, 6 years she was with me here. I appreciate your giving me a chance to make my pitch here, but I would be so grateful if this could pass, get approval, conditional, whatever, this evening. Thank you.
So I think, Mr. Ballard, that we've found a way, through here after some discussion. So, so I think that we're probably at a point to accept the motion of the commission here with some conditions to see if we can get a vote for a negative determination with the appropriate conditions, which then would allow you to go ahead and move forward immediately.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you all.
So I think, Ben, you had some thoughts with respect of conditions?
Yeah, so For me, I think if we conditioned that the septic system be moved generally northwesterly, a distance of 5 feet away from the wetland, that would give me comfort that we are, more than 50 feet away. The erosion controls that are proposed look adequate to me. So with just the movement, I would be comfortable.
So no change in limit of work, move the system. No confirmation of the wetland boundary as depicted on the plan or flagged in the field. Any other conditions anybody wants to put on this application?
Mark, my one other comment in the memo was that the plan didn't state the size of they're proposing straw wattle and silt fence, and it didn't note the size of the straw wall, and I was just recommending, again, now due to the proximity of the wetland, that it be a 12-inch straw wattle. That could be a potential easy condition with the silt fence.
All right, so we would make a condition that the erosion control barrier, the straw wattle portion of that be a 12-inch diameter straw wattle. All right, do you hear a motion for a negative determination that includes those conditions?
Mark, can you just ask for public comment real quick before we do a motion?
Oh, I'm sorry.
If anyone has public comment, put their hand up. I don't see anything as of right this second.
See, I can only see people that are in this room here, so I have no idea.
Can you click on, if you see the attendees on can you click on that and it switches over to the next list?
No, I only see us.
So it should say panelists at the top. It'll say 12. And then attendees will be to the right of it.
I see a number of participants, 23, and I click on it and I get 12. I only get us.
That's interesting.
So I can't see everybody. So I tend to forget that there's more than us. Because if we're in the town hall, quite often there is just us.
Yeah. Who else is there?
There's 11 more.
Yeah, I know.
All right, there's no hands up.
Okay, no hands. So I re-put the motion that I had was looking for back on the floor.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Okay, all in
Watson.
favor?
Watson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Pete,
Yes.
Guyer,
Yes.
Gregory,
Yes.
Wittes,
Yes.
Passamano.
Yes.
So Jim, I will get this to you actually tomorrow morning because we can do electronic signatures. So I'll send it to you and your attorney as well.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Melissa, and thank you all very much. And thanks to
Good
Joe.
luck with your move.
Yeah.
Are you staying in town or heading out of town?
My new wife, I got married on December 18th. She lives in Rhode Island, South County as it's called. Her brother and sister live here too, and it's an area that's very dear to her. I've loved living in Massachusetts since I came out east to go to college from the Midwest. But I love my new wife, and I'm moving to Rhode Island to a nice place in East Greenwich, but we'll be coming back. I want to see what happens with the house at the end of Deerfoot that's being restored. I'm hoping it's going to turn into something featuring a nice restaurant we can come and enjoy and drive by my old home and have happy memories.
Well, good luck to you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
congratulations.
all
Good
very
luck.
much.
Okay.
Very grateful.
Thank you all. Okay, next up, this is stormwater management permit 147, 149, 151 Middle Road, map 28, lots 35, 7, and 10. In accordance with the provisions of the South Road Stormwater Erosion Control Bylaws, South Road Zoning Code, Chapter 174, Section 13.5, The Southwood Conservation Commission will hold 3 continued public hearings on Thursday, January 28th, 2021 at 7:20 p.m. via virtual Zoom meeting on the petition of Quality Framing Contractor, Inc. for approval of a stormwater management permit for the construction of a single-family homes at 147, 149, and 151 Middle Road, map 28, lot 35, 7, and 10. These hearings are being held concurrently.
Good evening, Peter Bemis, Engineering Design Consultants here on behalf of Quality Framing Contractor, Inc. And this project has been before the commission now since its initial discussion back in December after our filing in November. And what we have is 3 lots. It was formed from basically 2 older farmhouses on Middle Road and adjacent land that was a FANF. And this land was combined 4 acres of which created 4 lots, keeping the existing homestead at 145 Middle Road, and then creating the 3 lots you described, 147, 149, and 151. 151 had been the subject of a notice of intent. I believe that was back in, I want to say September, October. We had an order of conditions received, recorded, and we anticipated that the lots would then be developed and not exceed the 50% threshold in the bylaw. Subsequent to that, the work was started. We found that they had cut more trees and then started stumping those trees past the 50% threshold, and therefore application was made in November for the stormwater permit. And we've now heard this on one occasion. My son presented that to you at the last meeting. So I don't want to be totally redundant on topic, but each building that's being proposed has 100% infiltration of their stormwater from the roof areas. The driveways also have filter strips associated with them. Each lot has a Title V soil absorption system approved by the Board of Health. Stormwater calculations were prepared, and the 10 interests of the stormwater management guidelines were addressed, even though it's not required for projects of this scale and scope under Mass DEP policy. We still did it. I know at the previous juncture there was not a sealed form. I think Walter, his seal was there, but he hadn't signed it. So that was subsequently provided. And the contractor's affidavit was also supplied. The work has been ongoing there. We did approach the commission back on December 10th, had a conversation about allowing the foundation work to proceed because we were entering the winter period and their meeting schedules were slim. So the foundation is complete on lot number 2, and then lot number 3 has just gone in. No driveway work has been done, no additional work. The erosion control barriers that were installed initially are still in place. The driveway is still in place for the existing home where we enter the site, and a construction apron is in the site. All traffic goes in along the southern part of the lot, if you will, and it circles a lot around to the west edge of the property and then goes out to the north. So there's no activities being conducted on the slope along the Middle Road until the permit is secured. I believe the project is in the proper position for a permit. Again, we have addressed the stormwater interests. There's a 2-sheet plan set. The second sheet has the provisions for the SWEP. Again, listing the items that I had on the previous application I had just presented to you, same details. And this has a SWEP, and we have a construction checklist. We would anticipate, again, having a conference with staff on site prior to commencing the full construction activities, making sure our entrance aprons are in place, and doing the work that's shown on these plans. the way they're presented. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
All right, thanks. I was not part of the last discussion of this. I had a conflict, so I'm just going to open up to the board. I think Ben was presiding over this at that time.
Yeah, I guess the one question I would have is we discussed with Zach the possibility of, well, we can't, under the stormwater management permit, require it. To see if there's any interest in as a mitigative effort to put in some plantings to partially replace what was taken down. And it seemed that there was some interest in that. And I'm just curious if that interest has prevailed and is going to be proposed.
Yep. So I know Zach had approached the neighbors that we have in common on the west, and we had discussed planting trees along that boundary. And I know that 2 of the neighbors have indicated support for that. The 3rd neighbor, there was some attempts made to communicate with them. The offer would still stand. I know that they never were able to get it finalized. But the goal is to put an evergreen buffer along that the boundary on the west, along these lots. And the idea was to plant a tree on each side of that lot line. So for every tree that was planted on the abutting property, there would be another one planted on this property with a berm that would be the responsibility of a quality framing contractor to construct. So the 2 abutters have agreed to it that are located to the north. So it really is along lots 3 and 2. And if should the homeowner on lot 1 agree, we'd certainly do the same thing there. If they don't want to put trees on their side of the lot, they don't have to. But I know quality framing contractor will be planting trees on their side of the lot.
Are you talking about just planting trees along the westerly side of the 3 lots, or are you also talking about going down the I guess the direction towards the east of lot 1 as well? You know what I mean?
Well, you mean along the south on lot 1?
Yeah, I guess it would be the south side of lot 1. Kind of where you show the erosion control barrier.
Yeah, I understand. So if the extent a tree, was needed in that area, I'm sure one would be planted. I don't think it was adverse to planting any trees. I just wasn't, again, if that abutter doesn't want to participate in this process, that's their choice. We tried to reach out in advance of this meeting this evening, so I could say to you affirmatively that it would be done on all the lots, but in this instance, the only 2 lots had agreed to do that with Zach. And the 3rd property owner, if they're participating in the meeting tonight, they could confirm. And then I would reaffirm that, whatever they plant on their side, there'll be an equal tree planted on quality framing side.
All right. Any other comments from other commission members? Ben, was there anything else that was left sort of open from the last meeting?
No, just some curiosity as to the extent of plantings that would be proposed. So,
I believe Zach had shared a plan with you. So we were looking at spruce trees. Actually, they'd already been picked out at Weston Nurseries. I'm sure they still have them, but they were a very robust tree. And it's one that will actually have a very good growth habit. So I would see it as being a very effective screen over time. I mean, you got to give the trees a chance to grow. But there really wasn't a lot of thick vegetation in that area to begin with.
Do you have a count as to the number of trees?
Do you remember that? Yeah, in round numbers, he believes there was around 40 trees that were being planted.
Okay.
Yeah, and I guess I'll just say that, I brought it up at the last meeting in hopes of, the commission has discussed possibly issuing fines in this project. And it would certainly be my hope that money, rather than going into the town's general fund, would be spent in some sort of mitigative effort. Excuse me, Carl's shaking his head. It would go to the commission. But nonetheless, I would rather see it spent, in a way that pleases the neighborhood and provides mitigation on the site. That was my hope.
Well, I would say, Ben, as you know, that's my goal as well. I don't think it does any good to be in the coffers, and it should be spent at the site. So to that end, I can assure you that that's the intent. This whole stormwater process, as you know, I was involved in this, and I didn't want to get into the merits of the tree portion of it. Again, I'm not happy about where we find all of ourselves at this point, at this juncture, but at the end of the day, I want to get it done, and I want it done right. So yes, I mean, those 40 trees we're talking about, I'm trying to remember what the cost for the trees were, but it's, say again? Yeah, it was for it. They were $400 each. So at the 40 trees, that's, help me out. Yeah. 4,000, 16,000. Yeah. We're round numbers. We're talking about $16,000 worth of plantings. So it's not a minor project here. It's fairly significant. And there'll be certainly other trees that get planted on this site. What I want to say is, instead of not a screening tree, but an ornamental tree, apple trees or crab apples, plums, oaks, cherries, that sort of thing. So there'll be other trees that get planted. I'm not trying to play landscape architect here. I can just assure you that these are very nice homes. They're all trying to create a nice neighborhood setting here, similar to the project that was done to the west of us. And in those instances, those lots were cleared to the boundary, unfortunately, and then this lot was cleared to the boundary, and that's why it looks as barren as it does. So I have no problem with you memorializing that in your decision. I will, assure you that I have to come in and get an as-built from you or a sign-off for this stormwater permit. And Melissa does that inspection for you, and I think she'll be pleased with the outcome of these lots when we're completed.
Hey, Mark, I have a stormwater question, if you don't mind.
Go right ahead, Carl.
Okay. On lot 1, right, the driveway is a straight shot coming down to the street, and the infiltration is on the side. The other two, it's obvious that it'll flow towards the infiltration trench. Is there any way you can assure that we don't have a river of let's not say river, water coming off that driveway onto the street?
Yeah, I again have no problem with that being in the condition, but that's the intent. That's why the filter strip was put there, and the general grade of that lot is going to the south. All the water in this area goes to the south.
They won't try to flatten out the driveway. If the driveway tipped,
But the existing driveway is going to be removed. It's all going to be new and regraded, and it will be pitched from north to south.
Earl, if I may, we could condition that the driveway to the lot at number 151 will be cross sloped towards the south at a pitch not less than 2%, something like that, and that would make sure the water is pushed into the stone swale.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get to. Yeah, thank you, Ben.
Are there any other stormwater related questions on any of these lots that hasn't already been covered? And Sherry doesn't have any questions about the stormwater?
Last time.
Okay. I apologize. I meant, I wasn't here for that, so I'm flying a little blind here. So, okay. If there's no other comments from the commission, I'm going to remember, Melissa, I will open it up to the public.
Right, there are 2 hands. The first one that I will allow to talk is Najee. I apologize if I said that wrong. You should be able to unmute yourself.
And please, announce who you are and where you live.
Thank you. Thank you. This is Nagi Elabasi.
Can hardly hear you.
I'll raise my voice. Hi, this is Nagi Elabasi. Can you hear me better now?
No,
Okay. How about now?
slightly.
So I
Give it a
am
shot.
at the house across from lot 1. Jason, who is at lot 1, is also on the call, and he has his hand raised. So since you called on me first, I'll start, but Jason will add as well. So Zach, so thank you first of all for trying to fix this. We appreciate that, to keep our neighborhood nice and the way it is now. I'm at 6 Leeds Way, by the way. So what happened is, I think Zach tried to reach out to us a few days after the last meeting. We couldn't meet, and then he came only again last week. He had a plan. He met with Jason and talked to me as well. And we haven't heard from him since. That was maybe a week ago. I'm not sure on the date. And the idea was that the south side did not have trees. It was only on the with lots 2 and 3, not with the south side on Jason's end. But Zach mentioned that he's not against it, but it's not his decision. There was no committal from him. He said he's going to get back to us because he checks with the builder or whoever is going to own that lot 1 at your end. And that was the last we heard of it. And that's why we're here. We wanted to make sure that our voices be heard. What you said, Peter, was encouraging, that you're going to make it work, and it's going to be across that whole region, and 40 trees. I mean, in the schematic that Zach left with Jason and with me, it was like 24 or 25 trees at your end, but there was one side missing. So I guess it could be, if it's 40, to me, that would be great. And if the 3 owners from the Leeds Way community do that, like you already agreed with 2 of them, then it would be nice neighborhood. It would be nice privacy, and we, seems good. But just want to make sure that we're not the bottleneck here. And Zach was going to get back to us after checking, and we haven't heard yet. And I think, and the other person, Jason, is the actual person abutting the property, so he can elaborate more on this. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So there must be another hand raised. You're muted, Melissa.
Jason, you should be able to unmute yourself now.
Thanks, Melissa. Yeah, this is Jason.
Sorry, my volume was way up for the last one.
Exactly. I have the same issue.
I almost fell over my chair.
You want me to whisper?
No, that's fine. I got to the volume.
Okay. Yeah, this is Jason Lynn. I'm at 7 Leeds Way. So I'm at the top left of this, what we're looking at on the screen, where the commission was asking about the trees. And yeah, I did get in touch. We did speak with Zach, so I don't know why it was kind of presented that perhaps I was unresponsive, but we did speak with Zach Bemis. We asked to see an updated proposal from the first one that was shown at the last commission meeting, where the trees ended before you get to that top left section that affect kind of where Nagi and I are. So haven't seen anything there yet, but agree with Nagi, appreciate Mr. Bemis Peters' commitment that there will be trees planted there as well. I just haven't seen anything. And I'll add that Zach Bemis's major point when I spoke to him was that there was no violation, or the middle road project hadn't done anything wrong, which if they're being fined, I find that confusing. So I don't know why there's a fine if they hadn't done anything wrong, but that was his main point. And secondarily to that, just interesting how the impact that the fine is having, where the folks on that side are coming to our street telling us that they didn't do anything wrong. So not a big impact there, but yeah. So I still hope to see an updated plan that shows the plantings along the property line there, where behind number 151, where it borders my property, but haven't seen that yet. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any comments, Peter?
Yeah. So I would just say that my son, although he will be my exit strategy for the business. He can't make the financial decisions yet. He will. And so, I mean, basically, my attendance this evening is to not only present this project to secure approval, but the financial decision needs to be made, and I'll make it. Because I have to be involved in this project, and I have to do other projects in this town. So, I understand the commission has the ability to find this project because it started without securing the necessary approval, and it did more work. The one correction I'll make to Mr. Lynn's comment was that when we started the project, the intent was not to need that permit. The moment they cut more trees, they should have stopped, or they should not have stumped them. That's the key difference in my opinion, because that's when the alteration started. So to correct that misgiving from my perspective, I do believe that they should plant some trees, and I will deal with Mr. Gilchrist on that. But when it comes to planting, that evergreen screen, as I stated, Mr. Lynn, if you're willing to participate along your boundary and you plant a tree, I will ensure you that Mr. Gilchrist will also plant a tree. If you do not wish to elect to participate in that, then there will be some trees planted, but it would not be the same screen that's going to be planted on the abutting properties, because those owners have already agreed to that approach. So that's all I'll just state for the record, is that there will be plantings and they will be responsible, but to do that evergreen screen, that would take your participation, sir. That's it. Thank you.
You mentioned the name Gilchrist?
Oh, yes, Quality Framing Contractor, Mr. Gilchrist, that's his company. So, he makes financial decisions for his company too.
And I got a little confused. So his role is just with lot one?
Lots 1 and 2. He's assisting my son with some aspects of his. My son is going to be on lot 3, 145, and he is assisting my son with the construction of that home.
Okay, so
thank goodness I don't have time.
Okay, so I'm clear, because I got kind of confused there.
Okay.
Too many Zoom meetings today, I'm not sure. So lot 3, you and your son can make a financial decision on, but lot 2 and 1 you cannot. So the 40 trees are going where?
Yeah, sure. I'll reiterate. So lots 2 and 3, there's already an agreement in place with the abutters that are to the west, that they want to plant trees on their lot, and we're going to be planting trees on our lot in order to make an evergreen screen. You don't see the lots that are created on the Leeds Way project here. I apologize for that. They don't coincide exactly where ours do, but they're fairly close. So when you get to lot 1, and you can see where the lot line comes in, it's fairly close to where Mr. Lynn's lot line would be. And so what had been offered was that they would, again, continue with that same evergreen screen, so that we have a staggered row of evergreens, and it's intended to grow as a belt. If you only do one side of it, then you have gaps. So again, if Mr. Lynn wishes to participate just like the other neighbors did, we'll do exactly the same thing along his boundary. If he does not wish to participate, I can't go onto his lot. So we'll only be doing plantings on the lot 1 side.
Okay. Yeah, I understand now.
All right.
And I just want to be clear about the term violation. So on lot 1, the start of the construction of that lot was clearly in violation of the Wetlands Protection Act. Right?
No, Mr. Busman, we had a permit from you.
You had a permit, but you did not have the erosion controls up. You did not have a sign up before you started working. And I can contest to that because I called Melissa about that fact because I drove by.
I don't know why Mr. Gilchrist didn't have a sign up, but yes, that was brought to
the
my
erosion
attention.
controls were not in place and the sign wasn't up, and you didn't have a pre-construction hearing and all those sorts of things. So we can talk about overstepping in the other lots with respect to stormwater and so on and so forth, and including lot 1. But in terms of the permit that you did seek and have in hand, clearly we're in violation of that and did not follow the order conditions as provided to you or the contractor. So I just want to make sure that that's on record, crystal clear, period, stop.
Agreed, I accept.
Okay.
Mark?
Yes.
Could I ask a quick question? I'm just curious, Peter, in the event that Mr. Lin chooses not to participate, I'm just curious what we would be looking at for plantings there. Along that would be the west edge of lot 1.
Right, yeah, so I would say that there would be some evergreen plantings put there. And,
Okay.
and, you know, to the extent if we're not gonna be doing it along the lot line, then we're not gonna be getting that that essentially the buffer effect of a double row of plantings. So you basically always have a plant repeating.
No, I understand the double row that you're speaking
Okay.
of. I just wanted to, in the event that Mr. Lin doesn't choose to participate,
Right.
you know, you had mentioned some other plantings that would take place. I just like to have a firm handle on that. You had said that you have a willingness to memorialize it, which, you know, I think would be fantastic. But we can't memorialize something that we don't know what it's going to be.
Okay, but I know, Zach, yeah, and actually, Melissa, thank you. You put the exhibit up. So that's the exhibit.
I
Okay,
think,
so
Peter, you were talking about they would continue down this side of the property line a little bit for the screener.
Right,
Is that what you
right.
mean?
We can introduce a few more coming back that way. And then Mr. Lin wouldn't be responsible for those because they're not on his lot. So
Right.
I'm fine with that.
So the effect is for every one that you place on the middle road lots, a staggered and basically a zigzag would happen
Correct,
on the abutters
correct.
lots, and that's
That's what we think would be the most effective way to
Yeah.
do this, yes.
okay, and my only question is if Mr. Lin chooses not to participate, are those spruces still going to end up on lots that are within your ability to commit to?
Yes, so
Okay.
so you see, there's 6 of them shown there. Those
Yes,
6 are
okay.
still gonna go there, that's right, that's what I'm saying.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure of that. That answers my question and
Okay.
you know, gives me some comfort. Thank you very much.
You understood, thank you.
I see something in the chat, and it's from Jason
did
Lin.
raise his hand again if you want me to allow him to talk again.
Yeah, rather than reading his chat, he can probably reiterate what he put in the chat.
Jason, you're all set.
Yeah, this is Jason again, seven Leads Way. So what I was asked to participate in, the plantings were not on my property. So I don't know why I would participate in planting trees that were not on my property when the person could move in and cut them down for. So, you know, I just want to make that clear. I didn't say that I wouldn't participate. I'm happy to plant trees on my side of the lot, but if you look at the tree line where if you go to the site and see where it makes sense for this double row to continue on, it's not on my property. So like if they're saying that they're going to plant a single row on their side, then I'm okay with that. But the reason why I was not going to participate was because I'm not going to plant trees on the 151 lot property on Middle Road.
Okay, I'm fine with that. Like I said, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. The illustration is shown with the intent, so that's all. So every tree that you see that is on the east side of that line will be planted. And again, we already have an agreement. We have an agreement with the abutters.
What about the corner? What about the corner? Where the green plantings stop?
Oh.
It continues to essentially to the 20-foot wetland buffer. What about that corner right there? And that's where the commission was asking about when they started. From the
Mr. Lin, if you'd like some,
Move that on the screen.
I don't want to do this with the abutter. So this is just, I've made the commitment. We'll add a few more trees along that side, and that's coming out of my hide. So I'm done.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes down to this aspect of it, I mean, we're just acting as facilitators because we don't have the, you know, we're not within our rights to ask you to, you know, provide a buffer for the neighborhood, but we are within our rights to provide any sorts of penalties that we see fit for the
Yes, sir.
violations that occurred. So
there are 6 trees shown on here. I would add 4 more, and that's, that you can write that in the decision if you're so inclined to not find the project.
okay, so let's go to that part of the discussion at this point. So my understanding is that the number of days in violation was 6, Melissa?
Correct.
And there are the violations on 151, which are for the violations of the Wetlands Protection Act or the permit that we provided in the form of an order of conditions. And then there's the stormwater management, cutting and then stumping beyond the 50% of the lot size. So, any discussion on this by conservation members? Excuse me.
Yeah, this is Ben. I think tonight we can only discuss the stormwater management permit, correct? That's the hearing that we've opened. Melissa?
Yeah, reading through the bylaw, we do have to have like a enforcement hearing for fines underneath the local bylaw. We do
Yeah.
not have to have a hearing necessarily for fines underneath the SMP.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay.
it's a little weird, but
I guess I would say our practice through the years has been the fines have been used as a tool solely for the purposes of getting somebody into compliance with the regulations. That's simply what we've done since I've been a member of the commission. In this case, the applicant has indicated a willingness to provide a pretty substantial amount of mitigation that I suspect is quite a bit more than the commission would have ultimately issued in fines would be my guess. And, we're getting them into compliance with the regulations. We're getting this mitigation. In my mind, had they come to us with a timely permit and proposed to clear cut the lots, we would have approved it because we would have had to. So I feel comfortable with the mitigation in lieu of fines.
Somebody's going to speak. Anyone else?
If we're going to do that, go ahead.
I don't necessarily agree with Ben. I think that the purpose of the fines is to clearly mark that we want people, like most people do, to get their permits prior to work, and that there should be a penalty for not following the bylaw. And I don't think the fines were intended to create mitigation. Right? I respectfully disagree with you, Ben. I understand your point, but I just, I don't think when the bylaw was passed that the fines would be used to help out the neighbors. Right? I think it was intended to send a clear signal that you need to get your permits prior to the amount of work. And this wasn't just an accidental, oversight. I could understand that, I screw up a lot myself, so it appears that, this was more deliberate than it was, whoops, we made a mistake. I mean, they charging along, and I just as a note, I had you read, I read out the comment or the question about what was going to happen on the lots when we lifted some of the cease and desist, and what has happened does not appear to be that. And it's different. It seems like the contractor involved here has little respect for us. They seem, I'm sure Mr. Bemis must have his hands full with these guys. But they don't seem to take us seriously. So I think, the the trees in the back, that's between them and the neighbors. From, you know, they have to get along with their neighbor thing, right? I just think the fines are there for the send a clear signal that you don't want to do this, right? This is not something, we don't want this to happen again, right? So that's my say. I'm not going to go on anymore. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else?
I guess I can say, I think the mitigation is good and valuable and should not be negated. That said, I don't think, you know, we don't have the mitigation necessarily in writing either. It's also a little confusing from the different documents exactly what's going to be done. I think we heard 40 trees and we saw a drawing that had more like 25. And it seems like it's going to be, you know, this dependent on this negotiation with the neighbors. To me, that's not the same as a fine. And I mean, to what Carl was saying, again, with a contractor who's done it more than one time, and you know, we already, I think, we're very generous in allowing them to continue work out, you know, after having violated both permits, or violated one permit and then not, you know, filed for the other one. So to me, I think taking the fact that they seem to be working well with the neighbors and doing this into account in terms of how much fine is given, I think is very reasonable. I think Melissa gave us some ranges and did some calculations, and I think it's reasonable to go to, you know, a lower level, sure. But to totally get rid of it when it's a repeat offense, and, you know, and it's not like even to the comment that, you know, they did it and then but they didn't come to us either. I mean, if they sort of realized, oh, okay, we went over 50%, I'm going to go talk to Melissa now. If they realize, oh shoot, we forgot our erosion control, let's you know, scramble and get this done, they came to us. But that would be one thing. But, you know, it's like they got caught, and then even then it took 6 days. So I don't know.
Other comments? So I guess I'd like to poll the commission to get a sentiment as to whether or not they're in favor of issuing fines of some level or not here. I think I'm hearing from Carl and Mr. Guy and Mr. Pete that they're in favor of some level of fines. I think that Mr. Smith is seeing that, you know, the ability of us to issue fines is a tool that we have at our disposal, and we have various ways of being able to enable that tool. One could be, you know, viewed as you know, a lever to be able to get some mitigation in terms of other plantings and stuff like that on the sites where they were, you know, clear cut and so forth. So just like to, you know, poll the commission here to find out where they sit. So haven't really heard from Ms. Watson, Ms. Wittes, Mr. Gregory on this matter.
I'm not a huge advocate of fines. I get why they're there and what their purpose is. I guess I think it's got to be real egregious for me to be like gun ho about issuing fines, and I'm not feeling the super egregious right now. You know, if somebody fills a wetland significantly, yeah, I'm all for it. But again, I'm not a fan of repeat offenders who just keep asking for forgiveness. So I'm a little torn at the moment.
All right, thank you.
I'd actually concur with Sherry. You put into words, Sherry, my sentiment, and I wasn't quite sure how to frame it, but I think you've done that well. I think I agree. It's a matter of the severity of the infringement, and I personally feel that as Sherry gave the example, filling in a wetland is way more serious and has much longer term implications than what we've seen here. That said, I think we have to be clear about what we do next time if this particular applicant is another repeat offender. So I think it's a tricky one, this one.
Okay. Mr. Gregory, any opinion? If you're talking, you're on mute. You want to stay on mute.
I'm thinking that. Actually, I'm feeling a little close to the whole situation, to be honest. Same builder's working next door to me.
Okay. All right. Well, from my perspective, I find the ability to issue fines is, as I mentioned before, as a tool. It's there for us to use however we see fit. I think in this particular case, given the mitigation that the proponent applicant is proposing here, Mr. Gilchrist and Quality Framing Contractor Inc., along with the Lot 3 work of Mr. Bemis and his son there. So I'm not really entitled to go after a deep set of fines here. I want to make sure that they understand that I think that we put them on notice, and that from here on out, like it or not, you're going to be under a magnifying glass with respect to the work that's done up there. And fortunately, I guess, or unfortunately, I have to drive by this whenever I come home off of Route 9. It's just how I get home. So I go by here a lot. And like I said before, I went by and I saw the work that was being done, and I thought you had cleared into the wetland, actually. And I immediately called Melissa up and said, what's going on? I mean, there's no erosion control, so there was no first inspection done. And, that sort of got the ball rolling here, I think. And so from my perspective, I would waive the fines for now. If there's something else goes awry on this lot or lots, then I would be more than happy to have another discussion based on whatever enforcement the Conservation Commission decides to issue then or not issue. That's my opinion of one. So I guess I would look to have anybody make a motion to propose a level of fine and see if the vote passes. If no one chooses to do that, then I think we table that discussion or close that discussion out. And then we go forward and talk about issuing the SMP permits for the 3 lots.
Are we only talking about the SMP fines, or are we also talking about the wetland fines at this point?
Just SMP at this point. If we need to come back to that, I think the commission can discuss it a little bit later, and then we can go through that proper process. But I think right now, just stick with the SMP.
Now, my understanding, Melissa, the reason for that is because we did not issue an enforcement order.
To issue fines under the wetlands bylaw, you have to have an enforcement hearing, which requires proper notification to the owner. And they just need like a certified letter with the intent of it.
Yeah, right.
So it's definitely something the commission can do. We just need a couple more steps to get to that point if you decide to go that way.
Okay. Got it. Thanks. I think that's what I was trying to say. I'm not sure.
Can I just ask a question in process here? So if we had issued an enforcement order when we issued the cease and desist, that would have been the proper way to go, just so if we ever come across this again. So
not necessarily. So you could still issue fines. I mean, there was still kind of you essentially did issue an enforcement order. You just issued a cease and desist for kind of the stormwater aspect of it. There was kind of a more informal enforcement, but the notification originally to the enforcement was, any further violation could cause fines. So while you don't have the WPA enforcement order that you issued, which would be a better kind of paper trail to follow, that kind of, the violations were still there. They were still notified on this date, regardless of the formal call of it being an enforcement order. It's just that we need to have an enforcement hearing under the wetlands bylaw to issue fines. Does that make sense?
Yep. To me, it does. Make sense to you, Carl?
It's somewhat, yeah, it's complicated.
Well, so there's the SMP, right? And then there's the Wetlands Protection Act and the town wetlands bylaw, right? They have a permit for the wetlands on 151.
Right.
They didn't have any permit for the SMP, right?
So I'll
So
say they got a violation notice, not necessarily a formal, what we would, issue an enforcement order. That's a WPA form, but they still got notice of the violation, which starts the clock. So our ability to issue fines, regardless of the way that we started, if we should have done one or the other, it has not changed.
So we have the ability to fine
We
if
have the ability,
the commission
it's just-
votes for it. I mean, so it is okay that we do that, right? Okay.
Right, just not, we couldn't vote formally under the wetlands bylaw at this meeting because we'd have to go through a proper enforcement hearing as required in the regulations.
For the wetlands bylaw.
For the wetlands bylaw, but the
Yeah.
stormwater you can do in a normal meeting. It does not require an enforcement hearing.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thanks for keeping us straight.
It's interesting.
it's complicated.
Yeah.
And to me, especially if we're limiting conversation to the stormwater, it does make sense. The mitigation totally makes sense.
Okay, so I think I'm hearing from the commission that pursuit of fines for the 3 lots for SMP violations is not desirable
By the majority.
by the majority.
Yeah.
Do we need to take a vote on that?
No one makes a motion.
I know we need a motion in a second.
Right, so if no one makes it, then there's nothing to decide on.
Yeah.
Is there any motion?
If there's no motion, I just have a procedural question afterwards.
I'm not hearing a motion.
So the question is, we're looking at mitigation in lieu of fines. I guess this is a question for Melissa, maybe Matt. The place to do that is that in our decision, or is that in a document that lifts the cease and desist? We don't have the authority specifically for mitigation under stormwater, although we do have the finding authority. So where's the appropriate place to do that?
I think in this case, if it is in lieu of fines, it can be stated that way in the decision, that plantings will occur per the planting plan that was submitted with the additional trees as discussed and agreed upon at this meeting. As long as Peter is kind of still okay with that type of language. And then, formalization of the staggered evergreen screening shall be contingent upon the abutters also planting on their side as well, but it's limited to work solely on the middle road lots.
And that would go in our SMP decision. Okay, thank you.
One question about that, because Mr. Bemis has conditioned that the abutters have to participate in order to get the mitigation, right?
I think
Well,
Peter has just stated they will still plant on their side.
right.
It's just the staggered effect will only happen if the abutters plant on their side as well.
So the plantings on their side will be the same all along, whether or not they plant on the other side. Is that correct?
Right.
Mr. Bemis, is that correct?
Sure.
Sure.
I don't want to belabor it further. Sure.
Yeah, I just want to make sure everybody, if we're going to do mitigation, that everybody gets treated the same, that all 3 of the neighbors get treated the same.
Yeah. But we had agreements already with 2 of ours. It was just the third we hadn't secured. And now I understand Mr. Lynn's concern was that they weren't being planted on his lot. That wasn't the discussion that I had thought would have gone forward. So I understand his concern. I would probably have the same one. So to the extent I can address it on our side, I will. And then if he wants to make it more robust, we'll see what we can do about his side of the lot line.
Okay.
That's how I'll leave it. That's the best I can do as a designer.
Thank you.
Okay. I think we've pretty much bottomed out on this.
I know I have.
Okay.
There is one more hand up. It is one of the abutters that has previously commented. I don't know if you want to do that final comment or if you think the conversation's finished.
Well, we'll take as, since he's a abutter, we'll take the comment.
Thank you. And I raised the volume, so hopefully you can hear me better now. This is Nagy Alabasi. And I put my comment in the chat, but I think we like that. If you do extend this to the 3 abutters, and I just had a chat with Jason, it makes sense. We're happy. And if you can put it in the new schematic, that would be great. But that would, that's really fair and reasonable, and hopefully it helps you mitigate fines and keep the neighborhood nice the way it is. Thanks.
All right, thank you. All right, so presumably, Melissa, you've got the S&P permits drawn up for these?
Yes, all I have to do is add the abutter comments that happened tonight. And then we can discuss the 2 for the pitching of the driveway on lot 1. And then the planting will be added in as well. And we can vote on those a little bit later if you'd like.
Okay. All right, so we can close this out at this point?
Yes.
All right. Okay, do I hear a motion to close the hearing for
And it's
these 3 lots?
too.
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor by roll call vote?
Watson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Pete,
Yes.
Dyer,
Yes.
Gregory,
Yes.
Wittes,
Yes.
Casamano.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
All right, have a good night.
you.
Okay, next up on the agenda is lost my agenda. Okay. Let's see, this was notice of intents and stormwater management permit, 96 Mount Vickery. So they've asked for a continuance. So in accordance with Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, Southfield Wetlands Bylaw and Southfield Stormwater Erosion Control Bylaw, the Southfield Conservation Commission will conduct a continued hearing on Thursday, January 28th, 2021 at 7:20 p.m. via virtual Zoom meeting. The commission will consider 6 notices of intents and stormwater management permit for a project located at 96 Mount Vickery Road, note to be Ruby Estates, map 28, lot 18, for the applicant Bodlini Builders. The project description is construction of a roadway and associated stormwater features for a 6-lot residential subdivision. These public hearings are being held concurrently. They've asked to be continued to February 18th. My understanding is to get some responses to comments and updated plans. Do we have a time
For the next meeting?
other than 7 p.m.?
Oh, not yet, because I still have applications coming in on Monday.
Okay. All right, do I hear a motion to continue?
So moved.
There's a second.
Second.
Okay, all in favor by roll call vote?
Watson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Pete,
Yes.
Dyer,
Yes.
Gregory,
Yes.
Wittes,
Yes.
Casamano.
I'm going to abstain because I haven't participated in this other than the ANRAD.
Okay.
Due to some other conflicts I had. Okay. Next, 720. This is an old thing. It was actually, oh, I don't know. The times aren't here anymore. Okay. Bigelow Road NOI continued request. In accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40 of the Southfield Wetlands Bylaw. The Southfield Conservation Commission will conduct a continued public hearing on Thursday, January 28th, 2021 at 7:20 p.m. via virtual Zoom meeting. The commission will consider a notice of intent for a project located at Bigelow Road, map 49, lot 19. The applicant, Robert Stewart. The project description is construction of a gravel trail and viewing platform for Sulph and the associated land wetlands back there. So my understanding is that they're pursuing an actual survey
Correct.
and getting that put in place, along with understanding the ADA requirements for the platform.
Yes, working with the building commissioner to make sure that he meets any applicable standards for compliance, and waiting on the survey to be completed. So they're hoping by the February meeting, if not the first March meeting, that will be completed by.
Okay. So we continue it to 218 or later?
18, yep.
Okay, do I hear a motion to continue this hearing to February 18th?
Moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Watson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Pete,
Yes.
Guyer,
Yes.
Gregory,
Yes.
Wittes,
Yes.
Pasmato.
Yes. Okay, new and or continued business, violation 63 Deerfoot Road, ice skating rink.
The homeowners are on, they're just moving up. So this was a ice skating rink that was placed in what they called the far yard at 63 Deerfoot. We do have previous information from filings at 65 Deerfoot that the area that the skating rink is in is a wetland. And then if you guys have specific questions, I think the homeowners are here to answer those specifics. But
Okay.
So I'll give a little background if that's okay.
Yes, please.
So the area, the far yard, my understanding is that it is not wetlands. It has been maintained. We've lived in the house for 20 years, and we maintained the far yard as a grass area. And my understanding, and I might be wrong, is that wetlands are defined by the plants that grow there. And the area did get a little overgrown over the last few years, but it was all wild rose, which I don't think is a wetlands plant. But in any case, we have had skating ice there before without a permit, which was probably in violation, but it was very small. We recently got a larger platform to put in place, which is what we were putting in place, which caused this violation. So we certainly didn't mean to be out of compliance. We are interested in using this kit that we got. We took it down as soon as we received the letter. We would like to use the kit if possible. And so we hope that we can figure out where and how we can use it. Incidentally, this kit does not involve any permanent structures. It is something that you put down in the winter, take up in the summer. There's no holes. There's no construction that impacts the ground. So that's the background. Any questions?
Probably. So this was considered to be wetland from a neighbor's prior permit.
yeah, let me share the screen. We actually just closed out a wetlands permit at 65 Deerfoot. So we have a recent as-built. So you might be able to see here. So here is 65 Deerfoot, and here's kind of where that wetland line is. And then, we don't know the extent kind of that it goes to the north, but.
And 63 is where your cursor is now?
This is where kind of the skating rink would be. The
Okay.
house is kind of farther up here.
Okay. So we're not absolutely 100% sure that it's wet there or not, are we? It's a educated guess.
If I were to take an educated guess, I would say that, you know, at least looking from the road, it did appear to have at least some probably wetland vegetation that did grow in. I don't know if anyone else had kind of gone through, but I think it was more kind of the destruction. You know, obviously it sounded like the area had been previously maintained. So looking at it now, a lot of the vegetation that had grown in had been cleared. So that's kind of where we get the initial concern that came up.
Okay, I see.
And Mark, if I can just add, you know, the fact that that wetland boundary was established under the neighboring properties application, you know, does establish that there was wetland there, whether it's, you know, 2 feet wide, 10 feet wide, 100 feet wide. That wasn't ever investigated as part of, you know, the neighboring properties application. So there may be wetland there, and it may be very narrow, and maybe they're not in it, but also they may be. And as we saw in the previous application earlier this evening, just because an area is lawn doesn't necessarily exempt it from being wetland, certainly.
Yeah, sure. Just unfortunately, given the weather we have there now, it's going to be practically impossible for us to make a determination whether it's wetland or not. With, you know, with frozen earth and snow covering and, you know, the like. And this is probably the time of year that you want to use a skating rink versus July.
Very true. If it would help, we would certainly be open to building the rink in an area like on our existing lawn for this year, and then maybe moving it over there next, or building it over there next year. But building it on like just our front lawn would still be, from the cease and desist letter we got, it would still be within that range of established wetland areas. There's a stream that goes through our property. So we would definitely need permission to do that.
To put it on the grass.
To put it on the grass.
Mm-hmm.
So if we were okay doing that for this year, that would make us perfectly happy. And then next year, when it's after the snow's up, we could have maybe come back, do that survey of the far yard, and get that determination.
Thoughts from other commission members?
Not opposed to that.
Sounds reasonable to me.
It sounds like a great solution. I'd also say that it sounds like a case for an RDA come spring or summertime to, you know, to say we don't, you know, to make it not so burdensome. I think an RDA might be an appropriate filing, which Mr. Moore is just a less intensive filing and a less expensive filing fee.
Thank you. I'll look into that. Thank you.
Yeah, it basically is, hey, we want to do something and we need to know whether or not we have wetlands out here or not, kind of thing. And if you do, whether or not what you're proposing is going to be very impactful or not. If we view that it's not, then, you know, then you move on and go ahead and do it. But it kind of works that way.
Sounds perfect. Yeah.
So, so yeah, it sounds like the commission is generally in favor of what you proposed. But I would go ahead and propose lifting the enforcement order at this point, since he's taken the rink down out of the wetland and is going to put it someplace else on his property. I don't think you know, that burden should remain any longer. So I'd look for a motion to remove or lift the enforcement order at this point in time, based on, you know, the actions that the homeowner has taken and the proposal he's made.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Watson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Pete,
Yes.
Guyer,
Yes.
Gregory,
Yes.
Wittes,
Yep.
Pasamato.
Yes. Can we come over and skate and have hot chocolate marshmallows or something?
Absolutely. You're all invited. Hey, thanks very much. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Mike,
All
I'll
right, have a
send
good
you
night.
an email tomorrow just with kind of the letter updating what we discussed tonight.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Promise
all.
to wear masks.
Yeah.
Bad joke.
Yeah.
Okay, next up is Calander Field S&P requirements. I have no idea what this
have
means.
Tim Davis, who is the rec director. I think Ben actually might know a little bit more than I do on this property in what they are proposing in terms of regrading and kind of some stormwater improvements and maintenance to Calander Field. I can pull up the plans if you give me a second.
Yeah, so this has come before us at Community Preservation, and of course, I'm the commission's representative on CPC. The CPC, of course, we've voted to fund it. Look forward to getting the work done. I think when the commission last discussed this, and this was going back a while ago, I'm going to say almost 18 months ago. I think the impression, at least that I had, was the work was going to the under drains that were going to be put in the field. It was going to be sort of like using a ditch witch or something to very quickly insert the drain lines and connect them to drainage infrastructure. And I learned during the CPC hearing that the work is actually quite a bit more intensive. They're really going to be removing the sod in its entirety from the field in order to put in all the under drains and some new base material, I believe. So I think we're looking at a ground disturbance well in excess of an acre. So that puts them into SMP territory. So at our last CPC hearing, our meeting, Tim was there, and I just let him know that the town's stormwater management bylaw would more than likely cover this project. I do understand they have an engineer involved who's taken a look at the drainage calcs so far. I think they're well on their way to having everything they need for the application package. It shouldn't be too terrible a process at all. But I think if this were proposed by a private entity, I think we'd certainly be requiring an SMP filing.
Okay. Anything else from anybody else here? Any other comments from other members? Can you hear me?
So just to make sure I understand this is a kind of preliminary conversation. We haven't had a request for stormwater permit yet. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah, Ben, I'll just jump in. Yeah, so this is more just to be proactive. Like Ben mentioned, our original conversation, we didn't get the sense that this would trigger it. But again, diving further into the project and doing some additional work that was requested from CPA, rightfully so, the conversation did come up. So after the last meeting with Ben and the committee, I reached out to Melissa again, just proactively, and I just wanted to get in front of you all to get your take on it so that there's no surprises come hopefully once we get funded and we can get work going, just so that we check off all of our boxes.
I guess, Tim, from the standpoint of putting a filing together, the expensive part is always getting the plans together. And you've got that done. Yep. You've got an engineer on board. The filing fee for a town entity is waived. So I don't think it's going to be a terrible, burdensome process. But as a commission, we have to be careful to treat town projects with the exact same scrutiny that we treat the projects of other entities.
Yeah, 100%, especially this project, because I know this one's been under a microscope. So
yeah.
Okay, so the discussion here is whether or not a S&P filing for this project is required or not, and I think we're coming down on the side that it is. Anything else?
That was the main question. You know, if the commission decides yes, then I'll work with Tim and get kind of the gears moving to get us on the first agenda that we can to get him everything that he needs once town meeting hopefully comes around to get final funding. He's ready to go.
Great.
All right. Are we set on
Okay.
this then? I'll take that as it. All right, so Tim, I will follow up with you probably early next week. I'll kind of look through the plans again and I'll hash out some of the details and get you some of the initial stuff to get us started.
Okay, that sounds great.
All right. Thank you.
All right, thank you, everybody. Take care.
Yeah, have a good night.
Night.
Discussion on invasive mitigation, 6 Newton Street. This should be Mr. John Walter.
Yes, so I'm going to move him up. I sent you all kind of a brief overview and I uploaded some documents to the Dropbox. What has kind of come to our attention through Russ, nicely enough, is that on this property, there's a lot of invasives that have taken over part of what used to be the lawn and what is the 20-foot buffer zone and a little bit of the wetland. And the homeowner has kind of agreed that it would be nice to have this area kind of restored and remove the invasives. So it's kind of an initial discussion to see what the commission might be open to in terms of allowing work within that 20-foot and to kind of what extent. If there's something different, maybe Russ or John could jump in and I'll pull up some of the plans, the approved plan we have in the meantime.
If you wouldn't mind if I start this off, I'd like us to look at this more than just this project. We should be able to use this as advantage selfishly for the commission to get a bonus rather than having a homeowner have to pay an awful lot of engineering and other permitting when we have, especially when it's under our bylaw, we have an opportunity to get things cleaned up really nicely in town. So moving along.
Right. So this was the approved plan. Originally, it was just for septic. And like Russ said, this is strictly under the local bylaw. So this is not under the WPA. The wetland line you can see is kind of back here, mostly influenced from the railroad tracks. And some of the other pictures that I had uploaded to the Dropbox included some of the pictures that Matt took when he did the original site inspection. You can really see the kind of overgrowth that this area has taken, along with some of the kind of recent photos of what it looks like kind of in the dormant phase of winter, along with John nicely provided some historical photos of what it used to look like as well.
Melissa, do we have what they intend to replace it with? I mean, are they going to turn it into? They're not going to turn it into lawn or something like that, right? Are they going to plant native species or?
I guess I'll let John answer that one.
Well, my intent is to really just clean the lot up, as you can see from the invasives that are there, mostly Japanese knotweed. My hope is that with the contractor that I have on site, I'd be able to do some surface prep to ultimately install lawn within a reasonable distance to the wetlands that are there. So I'm really just trying to, I don't want to say restore, but address a lot of lack of maintenance and just beautify the property a little bit. I'm not looking to go crazy. I've been a landscaper in town for 20 years. I know more or less what my limitations can be, and I'm just trying to clean the lot up. I'm not looking to do anything crazy. I don't believe I'd be removing anything that might warrant having an offset of plantings put in, unless I have to put the Japanese knotweed somewhere else. I'll put that over on the Boy Scout project on the other side of town. They can keep that. But for right now, I just really want to clean it up. And I've got a contractor on site that can help me scarify the top and prep it up, which would save me hours of labor. So I'm really just trying to do the right thing, and I'm just here asking for permission, not forgiveness, more than anything.
Now, John, are you proposing to go into the 20-foot buffer or no?
I hadn't really. Part of this conversation is how far you guys will allow me to do things. I hadn't necessarily planned on it. There's a lot of, there was 4 kids that used to live on the 2nd floor there, and there's a bunch of toys and trash and things that just kind of got sent into the knotweed and then were never seen again. So I like to, part of this process is also go through that and pick out some of the trash and just kind of clean it up. There's some bittersweet on a pine tree that's ultimately choked it out, and then in not too distant future it's going to be a hazard. So I'm really just trying to make it easier to manage and clean up the lot and just beautify the property that I just purchased.
If you leave it as is and let it go, it's just going to get worse and worse and worse.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Hold on, Maya.
Peter is actually also on the call, and he raised his hand. I think they might have had some initial discussions between the 2 properties since Peter owns 2 East Main. I guess John and Mark, would you be willing to maybe allow me to move Peter over too?
I have no objections to that.
Yeah, I can barely hear you, Melissa. Is it just me?
Sorry. Hold on, move Peter over.
I think my volume's low. I had turned it down for an earlier hearing.
I can start yelling. Might get some stress out.
Okay.
Do it.
Peter, do you have some commentary here?
Yes, Mr. Walter, I'm glad to meet you this evening. I'm sorry in these COVID times we haven't done it personally. Congratulations on purchasing this property. You definitely are an ambitious individual. So I'll applaud anything that you want to do to fix this up. I'm going to do my damnedest to try to fix up my corner.
Sure.
Someone once told me that I should sell hubcaps at the corner.
I think that was me.
You can go nameless. I mean, as my son says to me, you know, the railroad created this wetland. There probably was never one here.
Well, there's
the old historic photos. You know, this was all worked land. You know, there was a livery on our property at 2 East Main. This house, the house that Mr. Walter has purchased, was moved from the reservoir. It would have been underwater at this point. So, I mean, this
practically is.
Yeah, yeah. They didn't put it up much higher. I've been in the basement, believe me. When Ms. Valentine acquired that from her mom, I knew she the house needed a lot of work. The wetland. I mean, there's a culvert here. This water does move in this direction along this side of the railroad, the east side. But I got to tell you, I mean, we're struggling with knotweed on our property as well. We've tried to knock it down a few times. The only thing that's been successful is what's been done thus far over at 84 East Main with the plastic and the riprap on top of it. It hasn't appeared yet, and I'm hopeful that will continue. But I would support anything Mr. Walter wants to do. We replicated a small little wetland at the bottom of our embankment on our side. We want to plant trees along the common boundary with Mr. Walter. I was going to reach out to him while Russell's there, because I don't want those rocks that I see over there going in where I want to plant the trees. But I don't see there being a wetland resource area here worth embracing personally. But there may be a stretch for the commission to take that on. I know Matt's on the call, so if Matt wanted to put his 2 cents in on this wetland and maybe we talk about it some more, I'm game. I would do anything on my side of the property to make it better for my neighbor and for the town as a whole. That's all I wanted to say.
Mark, would you like me to chime in or no?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Matt, please do. I know you've probably seen this wetland.
Yeah, I mean, it is certainly on the lower end of the spectrum as far as wetland quality. it's always a bit of a dicey call to make, though, as far as sort of categorizing which are higher or lower values, because you might be opening Pandora's box to a certain degree. So I think you kind of have to, somewhat tread lightly in there. As far as, in an area like this that's so choked out by the Japanese knotweed, to me, you either essentially blow the whole thing up and just try and start from scratch, or you're just kind of working around the edges of it and just understand that it is what it is, and it's going to, just be that way forever. And obviously taking on something as far as if you were to say, okay, we're just going to dig the whole thing out, we're going to put some sort of a wetland back, and we're going to plant it up, and it's going to look nice and hopefully provide higher value than what's there. That's potentially not a inexpensive thing to take on. So I don't know if that's something that the owners and the abutters are interested in taking on or not. And again, where it's, this is just a bylaw wetland, the commission has a lot more leeway to allow that type of thing to occur, in whatever level the commission is comfortable allowing. But I would agree that it's not of super high value. And, if getting to the lot on Newton Street here, whether it's an area of lawn or an area of knotweed, neither has a whole heck of a lot of value from a wildlife perspective or a wetlands or buffer zone perspective. So sort of you're choosing the, sort of equal low value situations.
I agree.
Thanks, Matt. That was helpful. But before we had a Southborough town bylaw, this would have been something that would not be under our jurisdiction, could be potentially filled in, trees removed, whatever. So I think, Matt, to your point, it's, what value does it have? And where, you can see from the pictures and whatnot, it's being choked out. It's got a bunch of trash in it. It's got kids' toys in it. If this was in fact a wetland that was in somebody's backyard with that kind of trash and things in it, as part of a project that they were doing, we would ask them to clean that up, right? That has been our practice in the past. Get your grass clippings out, get your wheelbarrows out, get all the dead boards out, right? All that kinds of stuff. So, I'm in favor of, cleaning it up personally. And to the extent in which, if Mr. Walter has the wherewithal to do that and financial backing, I guess, that's somewhat up to him, I guess, from my perspective.
Hey, Mark.
Go ahead, please.
Cleaning it up is probably a good idea. It's just what is it going to be after the cleanup is probably the question. Is it again? Is you can turn it into lawn? I mean, it's still the 20-foot buffer. We call it the no touch.
Yep.
And then usually, and if we allow work in the 20-foot buffer, we usually like to say that there's some, mitigation associated with it. So if they're going to make it more beneficial to whatever limited value it is, that would be good, right? It should be better, at the end. It should be something more valuable to that small piece of wetland in there.
So it's basically, a wetland created by the railroad tracks, and it's a big puddle.
Yeah, I know. But it's it's been defined as a wetland. I mean, that's
Well, yeah, under our bylaw.
Yeah, under our bylaw. Yeah,
Right.
and our
So-
bylaw says 20
So we
foot no touch.
define, depressions
Yeah.
that do not have a means of water flowing in or a means of water flowing out. It's basically water table that makes them, wet.
Yeah.
Which is not something the Wetlands Protection Act protects. That
Yeah.
said, we in town decided to protect them.
Okay.
Right. Now Matt's point is we have latitude with respect to our bylaw and looking at the value of this. And I take the statements you made, Carl, don't take this the wrong way, but I take it as you value every wetland the same. And I don't personally think that's the case.
No, I didn't. That's not what I said, right? I said, if it's going to be if they're going to clean it out, it should be something better for the wetland, even though it's not a high value wetland. It should be something better for the wetland than what's there now. And so really what I'm asking for is I think what we really need to know is, what is he going to do? Because if we just leave it open-ended, we may regret that.
Well, he's on the call. He can tell us.
Yeah.
Well, my intent is to develop or maximize my amount of lawn with respect to boundaries. And then anything in that 20-foot buffer or anywhere inside the actual wetland itself, I'm open to discussion, comments back and forth. You've seen some of the pictures. A lot of this water is just, I don't want to say runoff, but it's surface water that's been pushed around by all the developments in the area. And you can see that it was actual lawn at one point. So to me, it's kind of the bottom of the sink. And I get everybody's water around me, whether it's the railroad tracks or the houses up on Hillside, or the Chuck Ellis's garage, or even Peter Bemis next to me. I'm the lowest spot on the street. So I'm kind of the catch-all for that. So I'm not looking to be highly invasive to it. I'm looking to respectfully maximize what I can. And then if we need to discuss more, I'm happy to clean up more inside that buffer zone. If you say, hey, plant some blueberry trees, that would be great to get rid of some of these rose hips that are in here. I'm happy to do that in time. I don't need to go gung-ho. I just have a contractor on site that can help me do some surface prep in my respectful boundary. And that is the lead edge of this. And then anything beyond that can be discussed. I don't need to have a greater plan for that, other than pull out some of the boards that they had thrown in there, or some of the RC cars that are half buried by leaves, or maybe reduce some of the bittersweet that's growing in a pine tree to keep that pine tree from falling on my house, which isn't a hazard yet, but in another season or two, it might be. So I'm trying to do some development and an amount of preventative maintenance here. And what that is subject to discussion. Any thoughts?
I'll comment on the bittersweet issue. I think anybody offering to go in, cut bittersweet off at the bottom to prevent it from killing trees, natural, mature, good trees, that to me, in my opinion, should be, do it, hurry up and do it. Because there's really I don't see any downside to that. Cutting the bittersweet, it's just there's really, especially if you're not proposing to dig out the roots or anything, which really doesn't have a lot of value because it's just going to come back through the seeds anyway. So at a minimum, I would encourage the commission to promote that type of activity really anywhere in town, because it's a nasty invasive that, where knotweed is ugly and pushes out other plants, it doesn't necessarily crawl up other plants and kill it like bittersweet does.
And might I add, my hope would be to continually maintain any invasive vines, whether it's that bittersweet or Virginia creeper. And what you see for the knotweed is largely in that buffer zone. And it doesn't seem that it likes the water that's a little further towards the wetland. So really being able to maintain that knotweed is kind of putting me in that buffer zone. And I'm not necessarily looking to establish it into lawn. I can allow it to kind of be organic, so to speak. But if we determine that we're okay with doing some kind of balance to give me some leeway, then that's fine. I hadn't really put too much thought into any adjustments otherwise to balance the environment there, which I'm open to suggestions to.
Mark, if I could make a suggestion, I would propose that you, John, put together maybe a rough plan or a markup plan of what you would like to do and exactly where, and maybe a little narrative, and then we can amend the already permit. You know, I mean, if you want to brush hog it a couple times a year just to keep the knotweed and the bittersweet down till it's dead, you know, something like that. Doesn't have to be lawn, but at least it would not be what it is today. Is my suggestion.
Okay.
I mean, Russ, you sort of pitched this originally as an opportunity. What would sort of you propose? I mean, I think everybody here is saying, yes, we want to get rid of the bittersweet. Yes, we want to get rid of the knotweed, but we do want to make sure that, you know, the 20-foot is staying with, you know, some kind of normal wetland or native, you know, whatever our various, you know, things that we like are.
So
no, what do you propose, Russ, in terms of a procedure for this?
I think what I'm pitching for the opportunity is for us to look at a greater cause, not necessarily on this project, but when a septic plan comes in and we're looking at the whole site, we have an opportunity to open our mouths and, you know, talk back and say, you know, what can we get, rather than going through a whole process, especially when we have the local bylaw only. And that's what I was pitching. I was trying to stay out of this one because I am the contractor on the job.
To
He's
help
doing a
out the
great
cause,
job.
I'm sorry, this is Mr. Walter's petition here, but I would have no problem volunteering some efforts. If with one of you, the members here, had suggested was coming forward with a sketch or a concept. I had planned on wanting to meet you, Mr. Walter, anyway, so I could use that opportunity to get together, and I have no problem putting in some efforts here. We've had some luck at knocking down the knotweed on other projects. It's a bit of a mechanical process, unfortunately. I've not found any of the other ways to really work well. And the commission here is not going to be very supportive of taking a chemical treatment approach, because that's not it's not a good thing for the environment.
I don't believe in it. So
smothering it does work. Smothering it does work pretty well. So we could come up with a concept and put something together, and the commission meets in 3 weeks. So not much is going to get done with the weather the way it is anyway. So I'm game to meet you out there and put in some effort on my part to help.
I appreciate the offer. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm undetermined in any of my forward movement, so I will keep that card. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, so John, I think what you're hearing from the commission is they like a little bit more direction and clarification from you as to, you know, to what extent you want to go out there and do what you want to do. Maybe a little bit more thought with, you know, your wherewithal and you know what your vision is.
Okay. Well, some feedback would be nice, as far as if I were to remove the knotweed, suitable planting to replace that. Maybe, and we would need to establish a line of how far you would allow me to maintain, either regularly or semi-regularly. Does that no touch, ultimately, do you allow that to be lawn because you find that to be an equal balance? Like I said, blueberry bushes is just an example. It doesn't have to be that. I'm new to this, very much so, and I've been thrust in the middle of, not in the middle, but this is all very new to me since we've taken it in this house, and I'm trying to navigate through some of this properly, and very much open to suggestion, I suppose.
I think the fundamental question might be if the commission would allow work in the 20-foot buffer, if possibly Mr. Walter would put maybe some native species in that 20-foot while be able to maintain some of it as a lawn, but still improving upon that 20-foot as an improvement in mitigation aspect. You know, maybe not chock full of natives, but at least having some sort of mitigation planting that allows kind of that happy medium between providing the mitigation and having some more usable space.
She said it much better than I could have. Yes.
Yeah, I'd be open to that. I mean, if he wants to go in there and clean this up, and the trade-off is a little bit of the 20-foot buffer becomes lawn space, and you plant some other native species in there. That's a reasonable trade-off.
I support that too. I think that sounds like a good approach.
And if anybody is concerned about precedent, from my standpoint, I feel as though that's a reasonable precedent to set, because this is like somebody had said, this is a jurisdiction under the bylaw, not the Wetlands Protection Act, which gives us some leeway, and its value is not super high, and its value with all this junk in there and weeds and stuff is, in my opinion, pretty low.
In particular, with the addition of a few appropriate wetland species, will actually gain some habitat value, as opposed to the knotweed garden that exists right now.
Yeah, agreed.
Melissa, do you have like some lists of native plants to share with John? I know stewardship does.
Yeah, I can definitely send some good resources to kind of find the appropriate plants for the soil conditions. So John, I can definitely send you that.
Fantastic, thank you.
So John, maybe in that vein, you could kind of sketch something up as maybe an overlay to what we're looking at here. It's where you'd like to reclaim lawn, and where you might want to add those plantings. Does that seem reasonable?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the question in my head would be, what kind of encroachment am I allowed on the proper wetlands or the wetland flags? Do I need to leave a certain percentage of it? Do you want me to leave clearly a 5 or 10 foot strip up to that? I need to kind of understand what my where I could be working with this.
I mean, if we didn't have a bylaw in town, there wouldn't be a 20-foot buffer at all, which means you would be allowed to work right up into the wetland flag edge. Now that said, we're talking about leaving some buffer someplace with some plantings and giving you back some of the 20-foot buffer for some lawn as a trade-off.
Okay, so
Right,
it's kind of up
playing
to
a little poker here.
Gotcha. Gotcha. It's up to interpretation as long as I balance it. Understood.
Exactly.
Understood.
Now I don't know if you'd rather have a little bit more lawn over, at the corner of your septic, or you'd rather have it behind your house. I don't know, but that, that's, you're going to live there, so that's up to you.
It's one and the same at this point.
So,
any other questions?
I have none. Anybody else have anything else? I see head nods left to right, so that's a no.
That's great.
So do you think you have enough to go on at this point?
I do believe so, yes.
Okay.
With a list from Melissa, I can fashion some kind of thoughts on paper. Do you want that to be engineer drawings, or do you want my chicken scratch scribble? What do you feel would be appropriate here?
If you, I think from my perspective, if you could create some sort of an overlay for that sketch we just saw.
Okay, I can use my existing plot plan to to show thoughts. Absolutely, I can do that.
Or if Mr. Bemis, he offered something, I'm not sure how extensive that would be if he wants to get out his T-square and pencils.
I don't mind doing a 2-scale drawing, so this is done properly.
Awesome.
So you can count on that, Mr. Walter. I'm in your camp.
Good to know. We got to get along as neighbors.
You get it.
Okay. All right. We're going to move on.
Thank you for your time, everybody. Have a wonderful night.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
All right. Next up is issue of order conditions 117 Framingham Road. Is this a certificate of compliance or order conditions?
No, this is the order of conditions. We closed the public hearing at the last
Oh,
meeting,
yes,
but
yes.
we didn't issue it. And I can share the conditions. The only one we really had outstanding was just in terms of the dry well. So I put pool discharge shall be directly drained into a dry well. The location and specs shall be located on a plan submitted to the commission for approval prior to construction. The last meeting, we kind of agreed kind of where it would be. Vito was just going to make kind of that final plan to submit. And then the only other thing that was that we just didn't confirm wetlands lines 1 through 12 because it was outside of the scope of the project.
Oh, this is the one with the backflush hose.
Yep. Next to the barn.
Yeah, the backflush hose, yeah.
Okay, do I hear a motion to accept these conditions and issue the OOC as written?
So moved.
For a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Watson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Pete,
Yes.
Geyer,
Yes.
Gregory,
Yes.
Wittes,
Oh, it wouldn't let me unmute. Sorry. Yes.
Pasamato.
Yes.
Okay, I will get that issued then.
All right, let me see, request for certificate of compliance for 139 Deerfoot Road. That's gonna be discussed at a later meeting.
Yep, I think they're probably going to come back more towards the spring. I believe they're making an agreement kind of between the homeowner of a different type of stormwater depression in terms of, I think they're going towards more towards a rain garden. So we'll see that kind of more towards the spring when they finalize that.
Yeah, I took a drive by there. That little place is ugly. It's just plain ugly.
Yeah, I will admit it is.
Okay, next up is the snow dump complaint, 22 to 24 Turnpike Road.
Yes, so I
You have
talked
some
to
updates?
I talked to Kimberly Roth, who is our circuit rider for the central region of Mass DEP Wetlands region section. And we talked about the snow disposal guidance in terms of the ORW in which this property is located. And she brought back that while the ORW layer on MassGIS covers kind of everything and everything, the ORW itself is actually only the wetlands and waterways, not the land upland of the water. So where the snow dump would be wouldn't technically be in the ORW, especially as we already agreed that it was outside of the buffer zone as well. So there's nothing on the Wetlands Protection Act side that we could necessarily enforce in terms of not allowing the snow dump. She said we could, kind of go further in terms of requesting the stormwater maintenance reports that we've kind of hinted at earlier, that we'd sent previous letters stating, don't forget about your requirements under your wetlands permit and that it is still open. But otherwise, she kind of followed up with the suggestions that we kind of already discussed a little bit in terms of just putting or having the owner put some silt fence along the slope at the downhill side of the snow dump to catch any sediment. And then possibly, in the spring when it melts, just kind of doing a sweep of the top of it, because in snow dumps kind of that size or makeup, it's more so that the sediment kind of just goes down in place and as it melts versus kind of going down the slope. Obviously if it is impeding the stormwater basin, that is a separate issue, but as it stands, she just recommended that possibly the commission kind of request some erosion controls, to protect the stormwater basin and just making sure that it doesn't impact the overall function of the system itself.
So this would be more of a permanent stormwater protection, which I don't usually see, Like most stormwater erosion controls are temporary, right?
It would still be, temporary in the sense that it'd be seasonal. So, there's not necessarily something that we maybe would want them to install that is permanent, but it would be as simple as a silt fence being installed, before winter hits, and then having it just kind of cleaned up come spring, and then the process starts over.
But even erosion controls would potentially do nothing for the salt, which, is in the water. So there's really no regulation about discharging all of the road salt into the water? Into the
She did mention, possibly the commission might want to ask or talk to DCR, because if anything, they would have more information or regulations pertaining to the ORW, because it's the specific ORW it's public water supply. But in terms of wetlands protection, there wasn't necessarily anything more that the commission could enforce or request for this particular area.
Is the Board of Health aware of this?
I'm not sure. I'd have to double check.
Because it is a kind of a dumping issue.
I see what you're saying with that.
I don't know if the Board of Health would have any jurisdiction to say over such a thing. I have no idea.
Well, if you're going to be dumping, you have to have I think you're required to get some kind of permit from the Board of Health. If I read, when we talk about the other dump later on, there's some, in their letter, they talk about the need of if you're going to be dumping. Now, I don't know if snow is included in this, right? If you're going to have kind of some dumping, you have to go through the Board of Health. So, it's snow. I don't know if that's included.
Yeah. The information that I saw that Melissa researched and so forth is, the snow's there. It's got, sand and stuff in it, but when it melts, it just kind of goes down slowly. And it may not be until, who knows, June or July before it's completely gone, because snow melts a lot slower when it has, junk in it.
It's black right now. I took a look at it and it's like coated with black.
Yeah, right. I saw it too.
Yeah.
And their recommendation was to put, something along the bottom such that, if rain or something came along, that would, maybe slough off the side and be caught by the siltation fence, right?
Yeah, that sounds reasonable.
And then it doesn't find its way, down into the stormwater basin sort of thing, because it's caught and it's filters through the silt fence. And that's about the extent of what they said that, our jurisdiction is with respect to the Wetlands Protection Act and so forth. Now,
can we actually ask for that? I mean, is that, it's a question that we can ask, but do
we can ask, we can't enforce it.
Yeah.
We can suggest that, hey, you might want to do this, or we suggest you do this. Whether or not they do it or not, we can't require it. We can't, enforce them in any way that if they don't do it.
And if the silt and stuff does get into the stormwater basin, then we can do something.
Well, no, I read, and I'll have to find this and send it to you, that having it go into a stormwater basin is actually a better thing, because it can sediment its way out before the water runs out with the the sediment in it. And then they recommend that, once that has happened, that you go in and you clean the basin out so that it's ready for the next season.
Oh, okay. All right. Well,
it acts as a sediment basin, right?
Right. Okay.
As it was designed to do. So that's better than having it run down the road into a drain.
Right.
Right. So anyways, I don't know if there's anything more for us to say or do on this.
No, I think, I'm confident in that the commission has kind of followed the guidance of DEP. If you want me to send a letter to the property owner, with our kind of additional requests and reminders of the open permit, I'm happy to do that again. It doesn't hurt anything just to kind of give a reminder that the permit's still open. They still need to be doing their inspections, just kind of as we do continuously for other projects.
And when you say the permit's open, you mean the order of conditions?
Yep, the old order of conditions for the
that's expired, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So that's just sitting on their deed at this point.
Right.
Which will become an issue when and if they ever decide to change title or ownership or something.
Or if they have another project, yep.
Yeah, sure, right. Yeah. Were they ever on the list of the folks in town that you sent open, permits to? You had compiled a whole list and said, hey, by the way.
Most
No.
likely, I know a good chunk of them got sent out before I joined on when Beth was still here. So I can double check that spreadsheet to see if they were checked off on that. But I think most of all of them from that time frame were. So I would, with somewhat confidence say that they probably were.
Okay. Because I know that there was a effort afoot to send out
Yeah.
to those folks that had open expired order conditions to get their certificate of compliances.
Yep.
Just being, a kind board, letting them know.
Yeah, and we're probably going to send out another round again soon, so it might catch that again, even without this letter. So.
Okay. Okay. That brings us down to the Conservation Science Agent Report. Anything, Matt?
Nothing beyond what we've already discussed tonight.
No. Okay. So in the Zoom era of COVID and so forth, and not having our meetings go until 11:45 and everybody being completely exhausted, not able to think anymore, we actually, Melissa and I talked about trying to schedule more time for some of the other hearings. We probably didn't do a great job with the 720 stormwater management permit hearing tonight. That kind of went a little longer, but we're going to try to use some historical information about how long certain size projects should take to be discussed. Should we allow 20 minutes, a half hour? A Park Central might be an hour, that kind of thing, right? In terms of size of projects, to try to manage our time better. And if something gets over sooner, we can take care of new and continued business. I think, as Sherry mentioned, that's how we used to run the board in the past. We did find ourselves once in a while sitting around for 10 or 15 minutes doing nothing, waiting for the next public hearing to start because we didn't have any old business. That doesn't seem to be the case as of late during the COVID era. So, and some other things in terms of just piling everything on for newer continued business. If it's something that requires some additional discussion, as opposed to having people sitting around in the waiting room for 3 hours to get to something that's last on the new and continued business, we're going to propose, having maybe a separate meeting to tackle 2 or 3 items, outside of this Thursday meeting, to keep it something that maybe an hour or an hour and a half on another evening, in between meetings, if that works for everybody. I don't know about you all, but I thought Zoom fatigue was a bunch of, FUBA, but it exists. I've been on Zoom since 8 a.m. this morning with a half-hour break, and I'm about done with Zoom at this point. So I feel like I'm growing roots in my chair.
Can I just make one request for next meeting? Is we got a letter from the Board of Health about Breakneck Hill, right? And I think we should respond to that in a formal way.
So we need to put that on the agenda, Carl, so that we can have a discussion.
That's exactly where I was going. I don't want to talk about it tonight. So if we can put that on the agenda for the next, pretty soon, that would be good. I would appreciate that. So rather than my coming in at the end of the meeting with a bombing mission, so.
Yeah, we want to make sure that anything that we're planning on discussing is on the agenda. It's posted publicly. People can't come into the town hall, obviously, and if they have interest in a particular topic, they want to be able to join, remotely via Zoom. And they, by the time it gets to the end of a meeting, a lot of people disappeared. And if we come in and we drop a bomb of whatever the size,
So I appreciate that. That's fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any comments with respect to my what I had just said?
Sounds great.
Okay. All right. That said, I can see in thumbs up. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Well, and I do have some. We have to.
Oh,
issue
the stormwater management permits. Sorry.
No, that's okay. So we have 4 Foley Drive. That was pretty much the standard conditions. If you want me to bring it up, I can. I also had uploaded it to the Dropbox. There's nothing specific for this particular one, just the standard conditions. So anything that's in there is just from the application itself.
Okay. So do I hear a motion to go ahead and issue the stormwater permit for 4 Foley Drive? As written?
I think Sherry motion.
Somebody make a motion?
Sherry did.
Oh, she's on mute. Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Watson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Pete,
Yes.
Guyer,
Yes.
Gregory,
Yes.
Wittes,
Yes.
Pasamato.
Yes.
Right, and then we have 147, 149, and 151 Middle Road. And the changes to those drafts from the ones on the Dropbox will be adding the abutter comments from this meeting, adding a finding about the landscaping is going to be put in lieu of fines as depicted on the plan with the additional 4 to 6 trees that will be along lot 1. And then for 151 with the added condition that the driveway will have not less than a 2% pitch to the, I think, northwest, set to the south. Okay, I didn't put that one. To the stone filter strip.
So the condition is they have to put in the trees?
In lieu of
What does it
fines.
mean? Okay.
Fine. Yeah.
So if they don't put the trees, then it gets revisited? Or how, what, like,
Yeah.
it's weird.
And they'd be in violation again. They're back in violation.
Are they?
Well, the stormwater management permit will stay intact, which will tie up their deeds.
Yeah.
So they won't be able to sell it. Which is a pretty big lever. Okay, do I hear a motion to, are we doing them individually?
You can do
I think
them
we
as
need
one
to.
or individually, yeah. Might
Well,
be
151 had a different
Owner.
condition.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right, so 151 is when they had the condition of tilting the driveway to a 2% grade,
Mhm.
along with the other conditions we discussed. So do I hear a motion to accept that stormwater management permit as just amended?
So moved.
There's a second.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Watson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Pete,
Yes.
Guyer,
Yes.
Gregory,
Yes.
Wittes,
Yes.
Pasamato.
Yes.
So next up would be 149, and that would just be the landscaping and the additional abutter comments.
Okay, do we hear a motion to issue that stormwater permit as just amended and recommended by Melissa Danza here?
So moved.
There's a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Watson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Pete,
Yes.
Guyer,
Yes.
Gregory,
Yes.
Wittes,
Yes.
Pasamato.
Yes.
Okay, and then 147 would be the same in terms of landscaping and the abutter comments.
Again, as amended and so moved.
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
second. All in favor?
Watson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Pete,
Yes.
Guyer,
Yes.
Gregory,
Yes.
Wittes,
Yep.
Pasamato.
Yes.
All right, and I do have one more quick question. I apologize. I am going for my SESB certification, which is a certified erosion and sediment stormwater inspector. And part of that application is there's a $300 fee to apply and $200 for the test. And I was wondering if the commission would entertain possibly using part of the employee training and professional development line item, which we have $800 to fund that certification.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah.
Fully supportive.
Yeah.
can we just do a motion just for my
Yep.
payables?
Yeah.
I motion to whatever Melissa just said.
Thanks.
Second.
Yeah.
All in
Third.
favor?
Watson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Pete,
Yep.
Guyer,
Yes.
Gregory,
Yes.
Wittes,
Yes.
Pasamato.
Yes.
Thank you guys.
Are
And
you
you.
our,
having a test?
I don't know yet. I still got to be accepted first. You have to be accepted before you take the test.
I'm sure you get an A.
Thank you. Thank you. I got my book. I'm ready to study. And another quick note, 84 Main Street will be at our next meeting on 2/18. They were just working with Peter on getting some of the plans finalized for that rain garden that we originally also requested because they paved the pathway to the cottage, and then also discussing the seed plantings. I think Peter had gotten it backwards in his head after Russ brought it up that it was supposed to be in November, thinking that no, it was actually supposed to be in spring. So he kind of had he was backwards in his head, basically. So he kind of confused himself, but he apologized. And John Deli Priscoli is the one who called me to follow up. So they will be at the 2/18 meeting to kind of discuss all the conditions or the comments that the commission has had. I know that there's kind of a building going up around that equipment. So I talked to JDP a little bit about that, and he explained that it is kind of a generator and the location was determined by National Grid, and he's just kind of putting the faux building around it to kind of essentially pretty it up. And, you know, looking at the plans, at least the ones that we had, it appears to be kind of right on the edge of where the buffer zone would be from the reservoir. Because I know we kind of not took away, but we kind of conceded to the pond being a stormwater feature versus a resource area. So it wouldn't be in the buffer zone to that particular feature. So I think it's a good discussion to have at the next meeting. You know, we've kind of had a history of this back and forth of what's kind of allowable and not without being kind of notified before. So I think, you know, hopefully they come to us with some better plans and a path forward of what their expected timeline is going to be for the rest of the construction.
Okay.
We look
Think there was
forward
a
to that.
generator back then? When this house was originally there? Did they have a generator?
I don't think so.
Yeah, it was a big wheel with like mules walk around.
Mice running in the wheels, right?
Okay. Now do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Sorry, just
Oh.
before we go, can I just so that I think everyone was aware that Ben and I and Mark and Melissa were in front of the Board of Selectmen on the Tuesday the 19th. I think we expected it to be a quick in and out. We were there for an hour and a half. But I think my sense is that it was a very, very positive, very supportive conversation about what we're doing and how we're doing it. So I think if you have an hour and a half to spend, you can obviously watch the Board of Selectmen video, but
Yeah, get your popcorn out.
Yeah, actually what came out of that meeting is I just noticed Mark Purple sent out an email to me a little after 5 discussing his proposed amendments to an administrative assistant position that would kind of replace what the receptionist would be, with the main support being to the BOS and mostly the treasurer collector's office, but with additional hours kind of left to us for administrative support. I kind of made the statement to Mark afterwards that it's not necessarily the payroll and the payables that we need help with. It's more of the kind of daily tasks. So I came up with kind of some projects that I've been wanting to do that wouldn't necessarily require someone who I can talk with kind of day to day, who knows the in and out specifically of the commission and applications and such. So kind of the backlog of going through the files, kind of cleaning that up again, sending out those letters again, kind of taking over the homeowner letters is a nice way, or some kind of the surface level things that I can kind of, I hate to say push off on someone, but kind of free up at least a little bit of time in the interim until we maybe get the budget for an actual part-time person.
The word is
Get
delegate.
assigned to somebody to free up some of your time for your expertise in the field.
Yes. So
it's delegate and rise.
Yep. So
Well put.
I'm ready to fight for as many hours as I can get. Hopefully that'll at least alleviate some of the chaos that's in the office lately. So That's it.
Okay,
All right, good.
now,
Motion to adjourn.
Second,
all in favor? Aye, aye,
Munson.
aye, aye.
Smith,
Yes.
Pete,
Yes.
Guyer,
yes.
Gregory,
Yes.
Wittes,
Yes.
Pasamato.
Yes.
All right, we are done.